He shoved my face into a $6,500 cake in front of 250 people and called me a broke old man. What Brandon Ashworth III didn't know was that I owned the building we were standing in. Actually, I owned 14 other buildings too, but we'll get to that. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 68 years old, and I've been a janitor for 43 years. Well, that's what everyone thinks, anyway. The truth is a bit more complicated, but let me start from the beginning. I came to Canada in 1981. I was 25 years old, with $200 in my pocket, and couldn't speak a word of English. My cousin Tony had a job waiting for me at an office building downtown Toronto. Night shift. Cleaning toilets, emptying trash bins, mopping floors. $7 an hour. I thought I'd won the lottery. Those first years were hard. I slept in the basement storage room to save on rent. Ate instant noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Sent what little I could back home to my parents in Guangzhou, but I watched. I noticed which tenants were late on rent, which units stayed empty, how much the building owner was making. By 1993, I'd saved enough for a down payment on my first property. Small apartment building in Scarborough. Nothing fancy. The bank manager laughed when I came in wearing my janitor's uniform. "You want to borrow $300,000? He said. I showed him my books. 12 years of careful saving. He stopped laughing. I never stopped working as a janitor. Even as my portfolio grew, I kept showing up to work, kept wearing the same uniform, kept driving the same beat-up car. People called me the janitor who bought the city, behind my back. I liked that, kept me humble, kept me connected to where I came from. My wife Susan left me in 2015, said she couldn't stand living small anymore when we had millions in the bank. She moved to Vancouver with her yoga instructor. We share custody of our daughter Emily, though Susan's version of custody means seeing Emily twice a year and sending a card on Christmas. Emily, my girl, she's 29 now, teaches 3rd grade at a public school in North York. Smart as a whip, kind as her grandmother, stubborn as me. She grew up knowing we had money, but not how much. I wanted her to understand the value of work, of earning your own way. I wanted her to marry someone who loved her for her, not for what she might inherit. Then she met Brandon Ashworth III. It was a Saturday in March when Emily brought him to my condo for the first time. I live in a modest 2-bedroom in one of my own buildings, though nobody knows I own it. I answered the door in my usual outfit, worn jeans, Toronto Maple Leafs t-shirt, slippers. Brandon was tall, handsome, dressed in what I later learned was a $3,000 suit. He had that confidence that comes from old money, or at least the appearance of old money. "Mr. Chen," he said, extending his hand. "Brandon Ashworth, it's a pleasure to meet you. Emily's told me so much about you." I shook his hand. Firm grip. Maybe too firm. "Call me Marcus," I said. "Come in." We sat in my small living room. Emily made tea. Brandon looked around with barely concealed surprise. I could see him taking inventory. The second-hand couch, the old TV, the faded carpet. "So Marcus," he said, "Emily tells me you work in property maintenance?" "That's right," I said. "Buildings downtown. Been doing it most of my life." "That's honest work," he said. But his tone said something else. His eyes said something else. "My grandfather started as a carpenter, actually. Built Ashworth and Associates from the ground up." "Banking, right?" I said. His smile tightened. "Investment firm. We've been managing wealth for Toronto families for 3 generations. After Emily left the room to use the bathroom, Brandon leaned forward. "So Marcus, between us, what's your situation looking like? Financial, I mean. I want to make sure Emily's going to be taken care of." There it was. The real question. I'd been waiting for it. "We get by," I said. "Emily has her teacher's salary. I've got my pension coming." He nodded slowly. "Right. Good, good. Because, full transparency, the Ashworth family has certain expectations about how we live. Standards we maintain. I want to make sure that won't be an issue." I wanted to ask what he meant by that. I didn't. I already knew. Emily came back, and we talked about other things. When they left, I stood at the window and watched Brandon's BMW pull out of the parking lot. It was leased, I could tell by the dealer plates. I called my son David that night. He lives in Vancouver, works in tech, visits once a year if I'm lucky. We're not close the way Emily and I are, but he's a good kid. "Dad," he said when he picked up, "it's midnight here. Sorry. I forgot the time difference again. What's wrong?" I told him about Brandon, about the questions, about the way he'd looked at my apartment. David sighed. "Dad, you need to tell Emily the truth before this goes too far. I want her to choose him for the right reasons," I said. "And if she chooses him for the wrong ones, then she needs to learn that lesson herself." The engagement happened fast. 2 months later, Brandon proposed at some fancy restaurant downtown, 5-carat diamond ring. I later found out he'd put it on a credit card. Emily called me at 11 at night, crying happy tears. "Dad," he proposed, "we're getting married." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said. And I meant it. I wanted her to be happy, even if I had doubts about Brandon. "We're thinking a small wedding," she said. "Just close family and friends. Maybe rent a nice restaurant. Keep it intimate." "Whatever makes you happy," I said. "Dad, would you walk me down the aisle?" I had to clear my throat. Nothing would make me prouder. 3 weeks later, Emily came to my condo alone. She looked stressed, tired. It was a Sunday afternoon, and she was still in her pajamas. "Dad, can we talk?" We sat on my old couch. I made tea. She wrapped both hands around the mug and stared into it. "Brandon wants a bigger wedding," she said quietly. "How big?" 250 people. His family, his business contacts, his college friends. He's already making a guest list. I waited, and he found a venue, the Sterling Hotel downtown. "Dad, I looked it up. It's beautiful, but it's..." She trailed off. "Expensive," she nodded. "The venue alone is $50,000. Then there's catering, flowers, photography, the band. Brandon's talking about a custom cake from that celebrity baker, flying in his friends from the States, an open bar with top-shelf everything. How much are we talking?" He estimated $300,000. I didn't react, didn't flinch. 300,000 was pocket change to me, but it wasn't about the money. "What do you want, Emily?" I wanted small. I wanted our backyard. I wanted barbecue and string lights and dancing on the grass. She started crying. "But Brandon says that's embarrassing. He says his family has expectations, that we need to make a statement." "A statement about what?" "About who we are. About our status." I put my arm around her. "Baby girl, you're a teacher. You drive a Honda Civic. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment. That's who you are. There's no shame in that. I know. But Brandon says once we're married, things will be different. He says his family's connections will help me, help us. He's talking about getting me a position at a private school, doubling my salary." "Do you want to teach at a private school?" She shook her head. "I love my kids, my public school kids. They need me." "Then tell him that." "Dad." She looked at me with those eyes that could still make me do anything. "Would you help? With the wedding? I know 300,000 is crazy. I know you don't have that kind of money. But maybe we could do 100? I have some savings. And if you could just..." "I'll pay for it," I said. "Dad, no. That's too much." "I'll pay for it," I repeated. "All of it. 300,000. Her eyes went wide. "Dad, your pension." "I've been saving," I said, which was true. I'd been saving for 43 years. "You're my daughter. You only get married once. If this is what you want, I'll make it happen." She hugged me and cried into my shoulder. I held her and wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The next 3 months were hell. Brandon took over everything. He didn't ask for my input. He didn't ask for Emily's input. He made decisions and sent me invoices. The venue, 50,000, plus another 15 for premium setup. The catering, 85,000 for a 7-course meal with wine pairings. The flowers, 30,000 for imported orchids. The band, 20,000 for some group his college roommate recommended. The dress. Emily wanted something simple. Brandon insisted on a designer gown. 15,000. The cake, Custom design from a celebrity baker Brandon followed on Instagram. $6,500. Every week, a new email. Hi Marcus, just confirming payment for. Another 5,000, another 10, another 20. I paid without complaint. Transferred money from my accounts. Brandon never asked where it came from. Never questioned how a janitor had 300,000 sitting around. He was too focused on planning his perfect day. I met with Brandon's parents once. Dinner at their house in Rosedale. Big old Victorian, though I noticed the paint was peeling and the lawn needed work. Brandon's father, Richard Ashworth II, was a tall man with gray hair and an expression that suggested he smelled something bad. Marcus, he said, gripping my hand limply. Brandon tells us you're in the service industry. Property maintenance, I said. How practical. He said it the way you'd say unfortunate. His wife, Judith, was all plastic surgery and pearls. She looked me up and down, taking in my discount store khakis and polo shirt. Well, she said, at least Emily comes from humble stock. She'll appreciate what the Ashworth name can offer her. I bit my tongue. Emily squeezed my hand under the table. Richard poured wine. Expensive bottle. I noticed his hand shook slightly. Brandon tells us you're covering the wedding costs, he said. Generous of you. Of course, the Ashworth family would typically handle such things, but given the circumstances, he trailed off meaningfully. What circumstances? I asked. Well, your situation. We understand Emily's mother is out of the picture. You're doing your best on a limited income. It's admirable, really. Judith leaned forward. Marcus, after the wedding, Robert and I were thinking it might be wise to discuss living arrangements. For you, I mean. There are some lovely retirement communities nearby. Very affordable. We'd hate for you to be a burden on the young couple. Emily dropped her fork. Excuse me? Oh, sweetie. Judith patted her hand. We're just thinking ahead. Your father's getting older. He probably can't work much longer. We want to make sure everyone's taken care of. I stood up. Emily, we're leaving. Dad, now. We left. Richard called after us about dessert. I didn't look back. In the car, Emily was crying again. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were going to say that. It's not your fault. They're horrible. They're Brandon's family. She was quiet for a long time. Then, Dad, do you think I'm making a mistake? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her to run. But she was 29 years old. She had to make her own choices. I think you need to decide what kind of life you want, I said, and what kind of man you want to build it with. She didn't answer. The wedding day arrived on a Saturday in June. Perfect weather, clear skies. The Sterling Hotel looked magnificent. I'd restored it myself 15 years ago, though nobody knew that. Brought in the original gold leaf from the ballroom, imported marble from the same Italian quarry used in 1928. It was my favorite property, my crown jewel. I arrived early in my rented tux. It fit poorly. I'd insisted on the cheapest option, stayed in character. I found Emily in the bridal suite, surrounded by bridesmaids and a makeup artist. She looked beautiful. She looked terrified. Dad! She hugged me tight. I'm so nervous. It's normal to be nervous. Is it normal to feel like you're making a huge mistake? I pulled back to look at her. Emily. No, I'm kidding. Sort of. I don't know. She laughed, but it sounded wrong. Brandon's been texting me all morning about tiny details. The napkin color is wrong. The florist brought the wrong shade of white roses. He's stressed. It's his wedding day, too. Right. That's what I keep telling myself. He just wants everything perfect. A bridesmaid came over with champagne. Emily drank it fast. Too fast. I left her to finish getting ready and headed downstairs. The ballroom was stunning. Brandon had insisted on everything being white and gold. Hundreds of roses, thousands of candles, crystal everywhere. It looked expensive. It looked cold. I found my seat and watched guests arrive. Brandon's side filled up fast. Expensive suits, designer dresses, that particular confidence that comes from never worrying about money, or from pretending you don't. My side was smaller. Emily's teacher friends, my cousins from Markham, a few neighbors. They looked uncomfortable in the fancy setting. Margaret Sato arrived late. She was a business partner, owned several commercial properties with me. I'd invited her without telling her whose wedding it was. She was dressed simply, and when she saw me, she waved. "Marcus, I didn't know you'd be here. Wait, whose wedding is this?" "My daughter's." Her eyes went wide. "Your daughter? Marcus, why didn't you tell me? I would have brought a proper gift." "You being here is gift enough." She sat next to me, still looking shocked. "Does she know about the business?" "No. Marcus, I have my reasons." The ceremony started. Emily looked beautiful walking down the aisle. I tried not to cry. I failed. Brandon waited at the altar in a custom tuxedo. He looked handsome, confident. When Emily reached him, he kissed her hand and whispered something that made her smile. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he really loved her. Maybe everything would be fine. The ceremony was short. Traditional vows. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Brandon dipped Emily dramatically. Everyone applauded. I clapped too, ignoring the tight feeling in my chest. The reception started with cocktails in the adjoining salon. Open bar, exactly as Brandon requested. I noticed he was drinking heavily. So was his father. I found a corner and watched. Saw Brandon greeting guests, all charm and smiles. Saw him introduce Emily to important people whose names she'd forget. Saw him getting louder, redder, with each drink. Emily found me eventually. "Dad, come meet Brandon's college friends." I followed her to a group of young men in expensive suits. They were already drunk. "Guys, this is my dad, Marcus." They looked at me the way you'd look at the hired help. "Hey, man," one of them said. "Thanks for throwing this. Must have cost you a fortune. Must have wiped you out." Another laughed. "What do you do again?" Brandon said something about maintenance. "Property maintenance," I said. Right. Cool." He'd already lost interest. Brandon appeared, stumbling slightly. "Marcus, there you are. Come on, let me show you something." He draped an arm over my shoulder and pulled me away. His breath smelled like whiskey. "I just want to thank you," he slurred, "for paying for all this. I know it was a stretch for you." "It's my pleasure." "No, seriously. You're a good man. Humble, hardworking. The kind of values we need more of in this world." He said it loudly, making sure others heard, making a show of his magnanimity. "Brandon, maybe you should slow down on the drinks." "I'm fine. It's my wedding day. I'm celebrating." He waved at a passing waiter. "Another whiskey. Top shelf." "Marcus is paying." He laughed at his own joke. Dinner was served. 7 courses, each more elaborate than the last. I watched Brandon get drunker, watched him get louder, watched Emily's smile get tighter. Between courses, he made a toast. Stood up, clinked his glass, swayed slightly. "I just want to say," he began, "what a special day this is. Emily, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. And Marcus," he turned to me. "Marcus, you're a good man, a simple man, a hard-working man. You raised an amazing daughter on your janitor's salary. That takes dedication." People laughed. I couldn't tell if it was with him or at me. "So, I want to promise you," Brandon continued, "that I'll take care of Emily from here on out. You don't have to worry anymore. She's got the Ashworth family now. We'll make sure she wants for nothing." More applause. Emily was staring at her plate. After dinner, the band started playing. Brandon pulled Emily onto the dance floor for their first dance. Then it was my turn. I held my daughter and tried to memorize the moment. Her dress, her perfume, the way she felt small in my arms, even though she was 29. "You okay?" I asked quietly. "Yeah, just tired. And Brandon's really drunk. Do you want me to talk to him?" "No, it's fine. He's just excited." The song ended. I kissed her forehead and let her go. Then came the cake cutting. The cake was wheeled out on a special cart. 5 tiers of white fondant with gold leaf details. Sugar flowers cascading down the sides. It was a work of art. $6,500 of work of art. Emily and Brandon posed for photos. The photographer directed them. Knife together, big smiles, look at each other, now look at the camera. They cut a small piece, traditional thing, feed each other a bite. Emily did it gently. Brandon did it playfully, smearing a bit of frosting on her nose. Everyone laughed. Then Brandon grabbed his champagne and drained it. Grabbed another. His groomsman Jake was next to him, whispering something. Brandon waved him off. I was standing nearby, about to head to the restroom. That's when Brandon saw me. Hey, Marcus, come here. I approached slowly. Something in his tone made me wary. You haven't had any cake yet, Brandon said loudly. Can't have that. You paid for it. I'll get a slice in a bit. No. You need to try it now. He grabbed a handful of cake. Actual handful. Destroyed one whole tear. Emily's eyes went wide. Brandon, what are you? Your dad needs to taste his investment. He was slurring badly now. The room was watching. Son, Don't call me son. He said it sharp. Mean. You're not my father. You're just the guy who scraped together his janitor savings to give his daughter one nice day. The room went quiet. 250 people. Dead silent. Brandon, please. Emily reached for him. He shook her off. Walked toward me with the handful of cake. Here, old man. Try some dessert? I saw it coming. Had time to step back. Didn't. Sometimes you need to let people show who they really are. He smashed the cake into my face. Hard. Frosting went up my nose, in my eyes, down my collar. I heard gasps. Someone laughed nervously. I stood there, cake dripping off me, while Brandon turned to the crowd with his arms raised. Come on. This is a celebration. Nobody moved. Emily had both hands over her mouth, tears streaming. Brandon turned back to me. Oh, what, you can't take a joke? What are you going to do, fire me? He laughed. You're a janitor. This, he gestured around the ballroom, is my world. You just paid the entry fee, buddy. Try some dessert. Beggar. That word. Beggar. He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. I slowly wiped cake from my eyes. Looked at him. He was swaying, but there was something mean in his expression. Something ugly. Brandon, I started. What? You gonna lecture me? Give me some wisdom about hard work and respect? He made quotation marks with his fingers. Save it. You're the help who got lucky. That's when I heard it. From the back of the room, Marcus? Everyone turned. A man in a tuxedo was pushing through the crowd. My son David. I'd invited him, but hadn't expected him to make it. He worked in Vancouver, had a big presentation this week. David, I said quietly. You came. Landed an hour ago. Came straight from the airport. He stopped when he saw me covered in cake. His expression went dark. What happened? It's nothing. Who are you? Brandon interrupted. David ignored him. Dad, are you okay? I'm fine. Emily's friend Sarah stood up from her table. That man, she pointed at Brandon, assaulted Emily's father. Assaulted? Brandon laughed. It's a wedding tradition. Lighten up. David turned to look at Brandon. Really look at him. You smashed cake in my father's face? Yeah, and? He'll live? Probably used to being humiliated anyway. Working maintenance. David pulled out his phone. Dad, I'm calling Timothy. Don't. Who's Timothy? Brandon demanded. David was already dialing. Timothy. It's David Chen. I'm at the Sterling. Can you come to the grand ballroom? Yes. Now. My father needs you. Brandon looked at Emily. Babe, who are all these people? Emily was pale. Dad, you didn't tell him, did you? I shook my head slowly. A minute passed. The room stayed silent. Everyone watching, waiting. Then the ballroom doors opened. Timothy Morrison walked in. He's the general manager of the Sterling. Been working for me for 12 years. He saw me covered in cake, and his professional composure cracked. Mr. Chen, he rushed over. What happened? Are you all right? The room got even quieter. You could hear breathing. Brandon frowned. Mr. Chen? No, this is Marcus. Wait. He looked between us, confused. Timothy was examining my face, trying to wipe cake off with his handkerchief. Sir, should I call security? Security? Brandon's voice went up an octave. For what? Timothy turned to him coldly. You assaulted the owner of this hotel. I watched it hit him. Watched his face change. Confusion. Disbelief. Understanding. Horror. The owner? Yes, Timothy said stiffly. Mr. Marcus Chen owns the Sterling. Has for 15 years. I'm his general manager. He turned back to me. Sir, I apologize. I didn't realize there was an issue. Do you want me to handle this? Brandon made a sound. Half laugh, half gasp. No, this is... Emily? Emily was crying silently, makeup streaming down her face. Your dad's a janitor. You told me he was. I told you he worked in property maintenance, Emily whispered. He does. His properties. Margaret stood up from her table. Marcus, darling, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize this was happening. You should have told me this was your daughter's wedding. I would have brought a proper gift. She smiled at Emily. Congratulations, sweetheart. Your father and I have been business partners for 20 years. Chen Property Group. We manage about $200 million in commercial real estate across Ontario. Brandon grabbed the table. Actually grabbed it to stay standing. His father Richard was gray. His mother Judith looked like she might vomit. Brandon's groomsman Jake was staring at me. Wait, Chen Property Group? My dad's company rents office space from you. You own like half the buildings downtown. 14 buildings, I said quietly. But we'll get to that. The room exploded in whispers. I let them talk. Just stood there, covered in cake, watching Brandon's world collapse. Finally, I spoke. Quiet, but everyone heard. Brandon, when you asked for my daughter's hand, I said yes. Not because I liked you. I didn't. But because Emily loved you, and I respect her choices. Marcus, I didn't know. I held up my hand. I paid for this wedding. All $300,000 of it. More gasps. Richard made a choking sound. Not because you deserved it. Because my daughter deserved one day where she felt special. Where she didn't worry about anything except being happy. Emily sobbed. I wore simple clothes because that's who I am. I worked maintenance in my own buildings because I never wanted to forget where I started. I lived in a modest condo because a big house felt empty after my wife left. I wiped more cake off my face. You mistook humility for weakness. You mistook simplicity for poverty. You mistook my love for my daughter as something you could exploit. I didn't mean... You called me a beggar in front of 250 people at my daughter's wedding in my hotel. I was drunk. You were showing who you really are. Timothy stepped forward. Mr. Chen, what would you like me to do? I looked at Brandon, really looked at him. Saw the expensive suit he'd charged to a nearly maxed out credit card. Saw the watch he'd borrowed from his father. Saw the fear in his eyes. Timothy, please refund the $50,000 deposit for the venue to my account. Wait, Brandon started. The contract was in my name. I'm canceling it. You can't cancel a wedding that already happened. You're right. But I can revoke your booking for the honeymoon suite, the one you planned to stay in tonight. I turned to Timothy. Also cancel the Hawaii trip. 2 weeks at the Four Seasons, Maui. First-class flights, all under my name. All canceled. Emily gasped. Dad, Emily, sweetheart, I love you more than anything, but this man needs to understand consequences. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. Let's see. The venue, $65,000, including setup. The catering, $85,000. The flowers, $30,000. The band, $20,000. Your dress, Emily, $15,000. Though you wanted the $500 one. I looked at Brandon. The cake that's currently all over my face, $6,500. Jesus Christ, Jake muttered. The bar bill tonight, $45,000. I'll pay that. People enjoyed themselves, but the extra charges Brandon added this morning. I scrolled through my emails. $8,000 in premium cigars for his groomsmen. $12,000 in vintage cognac, those he can pay for himself. Jake turned to Brandon. Bro, you said your dad was. Shut up, Jake. I kept going. The band is still owed $800 final payment. Brandon was supposed to handle that. I looked at Timothy. Pay them from my account. Then deduct it from the $3,000 Brandon promised to contribute to the wedding planner. Tell her it's been reallocated. Brandon went even wider. I don't have $3,000. The words hung there. His father stood up. Son, you said you had money saved. You said the firm. We don't have anything, Dad. Brandon's voice cracked. We've been broke for 10 years. The firm collapsed. Our house is mortgaged to the ceiling. I'm drowning in credit card debt. Judith fainted. Actually fainted. 2 people caught her and lowered her into a chair. Brandon turned to me, desperate. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I fucked up. I'll apologize properly. You'll sign something first. I pulled papers from my jacket pocket. Had them printed this morning, just in case. This is a postnuptial agreement. You sign it, agreeing that in the event of divorce, you waive all claims to marital assets, including any inheritance Emily might receive. You had this ready? Emily whispered. I had my lawyer draft it 3 days ago, just in case. I handed Brandon a pen. Sign it. And if I don't, then I make one phone call. And every property management company I have relationships with, which is most of them in Toronto, knows that Brandon Ashworth III assaulted me at my daughter's wedding. You'll never work in real estate, never get a lease for office space, never get your foot in any door in this city. His hand shook as he took the pen. You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting my daughter. He signed, messy signature, shaking hand. I folded the papers and put them back in my pocket. Then I turned to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that you had to witness this. The bar remains open. Dinner is paid for. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Consider this a lesson from an old janitor about the difference between wealth and class. The applause started slow, then built. Standing ovation. 250 people clapping. Except Brandon's family. They were gathering Judith, who'd woken up and was crying. Richard couldn't look at anyone. They left through the side door without a word. Brandon stood there alone, his groomsmen having scattered. He looked at Emily one more time. Emily, please. Emily took off her ring, just slid it right off her finger. Placed it on the dessert table, right next to the destroyed cake. I don't think I want to be Mrs. Ashworth after all, she said quietly. You can't just... Yes, I can. I'm 29 years old. Old enough to make my own mistakes, and old enough to fix them. She walked over to me, hugged me tight, not caring about the cake all over my tux. I'm sorry, Daddy. You have nothing to be sorry for. I should have listened to you. No. You needed to see for yourself. That's how we learn. David came over and joined the hug. My 2 kids, my whole world. Over Emily's shoulder, I watched Brandon stumble toward the exit. Jake and the other groomsmen followed at a distance. The last thing I heard him say was, I just need to borrow some cash for a cab. Timothy approached carefully. Mr. Chen, what would you like me to do about the suite reservations? Keep mine. Family room. My kids and I are going to order room service and watch bad movies. Excellent choice, sir. Margaret appeared with tissues. Started helping me clean cake off my face. Marcus, you magnificent bastard. Why didn't you tell me this was going to be entertaining? I was hoping it wouldn't be. Well, for what it's worth, you handled that with more grace than I would have. Emily pulled back. Mascara everywhere. Dad, I have so many questions. We have all night. Why didn't you tell me you owned this hotel? That you owned any of this? Because I wanted you to choose someone who loved you for you, not for what you might inherit. And I chose. She laughed bitterly. God, I'm an idiot. You're human. You fell in love with someone who turned out to be different than you thought. Happens to the best of us. David got us tissues. We all cleaned up as best we could. The remaining guests were mingling, drinking, some dancing. The band was still playing. People kept coming up to congratulate Emily and give me sympathetic looks. We went upstairs to the family suite. Biggest room in the hotel. City views on 3 sides. Emily changed into sweatpants. I got out of my destroyed tux. David ordered everything on the room service menu. We sat on the massive couch and ate burgers and fries and talked. Emily wanted to know everything. How I started. How much I was worth. Why I kept it secret. I told her about arriving in Toronto with $200. About sleeping in basements. About buying that first building. But you still work as a janitor? She asked. I still do maintenance. Yes. Someone needs to make sure the buildings run smoothly. And it reminds me where I came from. Keeps me grounded. You're insane, David said, but he was smiling. Your mother didn't think so. That's why she left. Mom's an idiot, Emily said fiercely. You're the best man I know. We stayed up until 3 in the morning, talked about everything, made plans for the annulment, discussed what Emily wanted to do next. I want to keep teaching, she said. My kids need me. Then that's what you'll do. And I want to move out of my apartment. Brandon knows where I live. I have a condo available in one of my buildings in Liberty Village. 2 bedrooms, balcony, walking distance to your school. It's yours if you want it. Dad, I can't just take... You can, you will, it's yours. She started crying again. Happy tears this time. What about Brandon? David asked. Think he'll cause trouble? I doubt it. He's broke, humiliated, and he signed a legal agreement. Plus, I meant what I said. 1 call, and his reputation in this city is done. Cold, Dad. I like it. 6 months later, Emily's marriage was annulled. Turns out Brandon had hidden debts totaling over $300,000. Credit cards, personal loans, unpaid rent. The annulment was granted on grounds of fraud. Emily moved into the Liberty Village condo, started therapy, adopted a cat, kept teaching her 3rd graders. Started dating a nice guy named Michael who teaches high school math and drives a Subaru. He knew she was Marcus Chen's daughter from day one, didn't care about the money, just wanted to make her laugh. Brandon? Last I heard, he was working sales at a car dealership in Mississauga, living with his parents. His mother sent me a letter of apology 6 months after the wedding. I didn't respond. Some bridges are better burned. Richard Ashworth II filed for bankruptcy 3 months after the wedding. Their investment firm had been insolvent for years. He's facing fraud charges now. Should have seen that coming. The $300,000 I spent on the wedding? People ask if I regret it. I don't. Not a dollar. Because Emily needed to see who Brandon really was. Better to learn at a wedding than after 10 years of marriage, 3 kids, and a messy divorce. Plus, in a weird way, it brought my family back together. David visits more now. We have dinner once a month when he's in Toronto. Emily comes over every Sunday for tea. We sit in my modest condo, eat dim sum, and laugh about that ridiculous wedding. I'm still working maintenance. Still drive my 2010 Honda Accord. Still live in my 2-bedroom condo. Still wear clothes from Walmart. People who meet me have no idea I'm worth $180 million. That's exactly how I like it. Because wealth isn't about what you show. It's about what you build, what you protect, who you love. My wife used to say I was too humble, that I should enjoy our success more. She's in Vancouver now with her yoga instructor in a waterfront condo I'm sure she thinks is impressive. She calls Emily twice a year, Christmas and birthdays. Always asks how I'm doing. Always sounds disappointed that I'm still just a janitor. Emily asked me once if I was lonely. Sometimes, I told her honestly. But I have you. I have David. I have work I love. Buildings that need me. That's enough. She smiled. You're ridiculous, you know that? So I've been told. Last week, Emily brought Michael to meet me. Nice kid, teacher's salary, drives that Subaru, wore khakis and a button-down shirt. Nervous as hell. Mr. Chen, he said, shaking my hand. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Call me Marcus. You want some tea? We sat in my living room. Same second-hand couch. Same old TV. Michael looked around, clearly confused. This wasn't what he expected from Marcus Chen's home. Sir Marcus, I just want you to know I care about Emily a lot. I know about what happened. With Brandon, I'm not like that. I don't care about money or status or any of that. I love her. I believed him. Could see it in his eyes. You know Emily's my only daughter? Yes, sir. And you know what I'd do to anyone who hurt her? He swallowed. I can imagine, sir. I let him sweat for a minute, then smiled. Good. Welcome to the family, Michael. His relief was visible. Emily kissed his cheek. They're talking about getting engaged next spring. Simple wedding this time. Backyard barbecue. String lights. Dancing on grass. Exactly what Emily wanted the first time. I'll pay for that too. Probably cost 3,000 instead of 300,000. And it'll be perfect. Because I learned something from that disaster of a wedding 6 months ago. Sometimes the most expensive lesson is letting your kids make their own mistakes. Watching them get hurt, wanting to protect them but knowing you can't. But being there afterward, when they're picking up the pieces, that's priceless. Brandon texted Emily last month, asked if they could talk. She blocked his number. David sent me the address of Brandon's parents' house last week, foreclosure notice on the door. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel bad either. Just felt nothing. They made their choices. Now they live with them. Me? I'm still fixing leaky faucets and changing light bulbs in my buildings. Still driving my Accord. Still living small while my bank account grows. My accountant keeps telling me to retire, enjoy my wealth, travel, buy something nice. I tell him I'll think about it. But honestly, I like my life exactly as it is. Simple, quiet, humble. With one daughter who finally understands that money doesn't define worth. One son who visits more often. And memories of a $6,500 cake smashed in my face that taught everyone in that ballroom a lesson about respect. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just being yourself, living your values, and letting people show who they really are. Brandon showed us at that wedding, and it cost him everything. Me, I'm still just Marcus, still a janitor, still the guy who takes out trash and fixes sinks. Just happens, I own the buildings where I do it, and that makes all the difference.